leaders oftentimes will pick on something that's bad, but is that leadership reinforce the positives?
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
I'm having a great day, Lindsay. How's your day going?
It's going good. I'm so glad you're here in Charleston. We got to make this more of a regular occurrence for us to be in the same place. But looking forward to spending the day with you here and with a couple of really great agents on today.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. We have a treat today. We've got David Keller, all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, joining us today. Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm great. Great to be here. How are you?
Good. How is everything in Cleveland these days?
You know, it's like 75 and sunny. We came out of the perpetual winter. So that's fantastic.
And I'm going to be in Cleveland next week, and it's going to be literally like 45, rainy and windy.
That's quite Cleveland.
Yeah, I was really hoping like, oh, maybe we'll get out and kayak, or we can like go on a little walk. No, I think I'm going to be sitting in front of a fireplace drinking wine is what I'm going to be doing.
Hey, you can still do all those things. It just might be a little cold and wet out there.
Yeah, it might be a little cold. It's been like 80 degrees and sunny for the last 2 weeks straight here. So I'm going to be like in my winter. I need to bring my winter jacket with me, basically.
Is that bragging I just heard, by the way?
A little.
It might have been. Yeah, it might have been.
Well, David, when we recently saw you at Paradiso Leadership, their little breakout in North Carolina, that was super fun. I didn't even expect you to be there. So that was a super special treat to have you there. And the biggest part of that whole event, for any listeners who don't know what we're talking about, was a man who, what was he, a lieutenant in the...
I think he was a major. So, and then he went to colonel, but then he had his issue and he had to step out early. So
yeah, but he does pretty intense training on leadership, and it's the framework that a lot of the branches of the military use in order to make decisions and debrief really effectively. I know that I really enjoyed it. I have like 12 pages of notes. I actually was thinking recently that I need to like type them up into something so that I have them in 2 different forms, because they're still just in my notebook in my handwriting. But wanted to get your takeaways. Like, we've been gone from it for about 2 months. Like, how did that impact your thinking around the agency, and what changes have you made?
So I think one of the big things, the big takeaways for me, is just defaulting back to what is the objective. So when we're working on something and maybe it doesn't go as planned, or maybe it does go as planned, what were we really trying to accomplish? Was that defined from the get-go? And did we do the right activities to really determine what success is, or actually achieve success in that particular activity? Yeah. So I think that's a big thing there, is like, what is the why behind what we're doing? And are the actions that we're taking going to actually achieve the desired outcome?
100%. I think that was one of my biggest takeaways too. I've actually found myself quoting him when, even with clients that we work with, if they're hiring us for a speaking engagement, or just even on like team meetings, I find myself saying, if someone says, hey, we'll do this and we'll debrief after, I pause the conversation. I say, hey, that's awesome. I really would, look forward to debriefing with you. But before we even go into the situation, can we outline what does success look like? Because success to me might be completely different to you. And if I've never been in the room and I'm, you're hiring us to come speak, I have no idea what success looks like. That it's a black box to me. So let's kind of put some pen on paper so I know a little bit in the moment. Can I pivot and make it more successful or not? And not just find out after. So that was setting like the intention for what it's going to be was really important to me.
And I like how you really said debrief on what success looks like, because oftentimes I feel like we defer to the negative, we defer to the bad. It's like, oh, this issue happened. Let's go ahead and do a debrief, an after action report on what were the steps that caused this issue to occur. Instead of saying, you know what, we won. We had some success here. What did we do to achieve that success? How can we replicate that? So I think that's a really important point that you laid out there.
Yeah.
So, hey, Linz, when I listen to Cujo, I 100%, you got to know where you're headed and what success looks like, no doubt. But I think the biggest thing for me when I left that room was how we all jumped to fill in the gaps of what is missing in the information that we have, and being self-aware of how quickly we all jumped to human nature is to jump to conclusions rather than actually ask the questions. And he did it, and he demonstrated that in multiple ways to us, which was really impactful. So it makes you hit your own pause button and say, hold on a minute. We actually need to approach this in a way that doesn't like draw judgment. Instead, you seek to get clarity, which was really impactful. Like nobody wants to believe that they jump to conclusions, but every single one of us jumped to conclusions,
Yeah.
Well, and Carey, to that, the idea of psychological safety.
Yeah.
So we can really get those thoughts out there and get that stuff out there and just be in an environment of safety where it's like, hey, I messed this up and I know that you're not going to come down on me, and say, okay, let's really unpack that. What were the things that led to this? So I think that idea of psychological safety is something that business owners, leaders just need to incorporate when they're just communicating with their team regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely gave us some tools to think about. The last thing you want to do is put someone on the defensive. But I think our normal way of trying to seek for clarity puts someone back on their heels because we bring a tone or preconceived notion to the conversation that is not what anybody in that conversation wants, which was crazy. So It's definitely caused me to change the approach for sure. And be more aware. Self-awareness is probably the key, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing as well. So it's like he talked a lot about, praising people for the successes and stop getting after them on the negatives. And how do people want to be communicated with as well? So it's like, if you ever take a disc, I'm a high I and I got a lot of D up in there too. So I could be fairly direct. But depending on who you're dealing with, that's not going to resonate very well. That won't create that environment of psychological safety. And, maybe you need to just really approach that situation much differently and soften the way that you're going to interact with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
No one's ever called me direct, David. I guess got to tell you. I'm just kidding.
No one's ever called me intense either. So,
oh, that's some funny stuff. I love it.
So, David, looking back at Cujo, when you were reflecting on it, were there any situations within the agency? I mean, you've been leading the agency for how long now?
15 years.
Okay, so 15 years. Were there any situations looking back that you were like, wow, if I would have had this training, I would have approached this differently, or I could have, influenced this outcome to be different?
So I'll take us back to the early days. So when I started the agency, we did it organically. We didn't work with an aggregator. So we got a lot of just various carriers via direct appointments. And we started to plug in whatever we could find that would fit. And we stumbled into truck insurance. And here you could find these massive accounts that were very, very easy to get. But that being said, we didn't have standards. We didn't have the objective in place in order to really find out what is it we're actually trying to accomplish with this. Our idea was, let's go get big accounts, big premium. And what happened with that is, without clarity in what the real objective is, right quality business that's going to be with you long term, what's the total lifetime value of a client? That was something that we did not really evaluate when we were approaching this segment here. And it bit us. So we spent a lot of money on purchasing leads, acquiring lead lists, staffing, because it's a heavy service area. And ultimately, it was very unprofitable. So all of our good stuff, the construction classes, the personal insurance, those types of classes of business, the revenue from that was subsidizing the losses in the trucking book of business. So we had to really step back and detach from that and start to clean that up. So when you take a look at what we learned in the program, it's like really get hyper clear. What is the objective? What are we trying to achieve when we're doing this stuff? Well, lifetime value of a client is very meaningful. So we don't want to have transient customers. And you can build a quality truck book. There's a lot of great trucking agencies out there that have done that. But the stuff we were doing just didn't fit that criteria. That makes sense?
Yeah. And I think had you thought about, hey, I want to put premium on the books, but I want to do it in a way that actually makes sense with what my process is, what my structure looks like, with what my team understands, et cetera. It's the same thing for an acquisition. Sometimes people get super, super excited about an opportunity to buy an agency, but it doesn't fit with their agency, and it ends up pulling them off of what they should be thinking about, rather than, it's not more of the same. It's actually so different that now it's a difficult thing to do. I love that idea. Had you defined the objective well, which is we want to grow our agency in a way that helps us actually be more efficient, et cetera, and keeps our clients and make sure that it's a long-term play rather than a short-term, it would have been a very different thing. I agree. And that's hard. Yeah. It's hard to see all of that because if you aren't really digging deep in defining that goal, you could be fooled by, hey man, these are nice size accounts, so it's going to get us to this objective, but you don't see the cliff of something else being in the way, right?
Absolutely. And that can just even going back to the acquisition side of things. Why do we want to do this acquisition? Well, we want to add more premium, more revenue, more skill set. Why do you want to add more premium, more revenue, more skill set? And just start to dig a little bit deeper down in that. And the nice thing is Cujo gave us that framework. And if you purchase his book, forgive me, I got it on my shelf over there. I would show it on the screen.
I have mine somewhere. I don't know where it is.
It's not here either. That's really crazy. I can't believe I don't have it sitting here. That's all. But
digging in on that framework is really critical. And, when you're constructing a debrief, really start to ask those questions to figure out what's the meaning behind what we did or why we actually want to do this. So.
Yeah. When you brought it back to your team and you came back to the office, did you do any sort of presentation or introduce it to the team? And how does that look in your office now?
So we had, this is going to the negative side. When I got back in, we had two issues that popped up. So the first one was really fun. Our email server or email got deleted. So somehow GoDaddy accidentally deleted our domain. So we had a day and a half of no email.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure that gave every professional on this call a heart palpitation.
Yes.
You might have made me have a heart palpitation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When's the last time we checked our GoDaddy, Mom?
Sounds terrible.
We went Monday, no email. And then Tuesday, I'm on the phone with GoDaddy all morning saying, we've got to get this sorted out and get us back in action. And they're like, well, it could be 7 to 10 days. And I was like, so, fortunately, they were able to get it back up and running by noon that day.
Oh, thank God.
We were able to really evaluate what happened on our end that led to that. And one of the things that we did was we needed to expand the space of like the size of what our inbox could actually hold. So we upgraded. And when we upgraded, somehow the technician accidentally deleted it. They were able to restore everything. It was expensive, but we got back online. So there was that.
Wow.
And then second one was relatively recently. So a lightning strike happened close by and all of our phones got fried. Now, fortunately, we could pivot to these fairly easily. So those handsets didn't matter. But you can really start to take a look at like, what did we do initially that allow this to actually happen? And when you can start to understand that stuff, you could control the variables and predict future challenges. And I mean, that's what we do as insurance professionals, right? So we should do that as business owners, really try to manage the risk, predict future challenges, and run our business cleaner.
Yeah.
Not only that, you control the variables, but then you can also look at how did I react in that situation?
Mm.
Like, it makes me think of that Miss America situation, that Cujo
Explain
shared
it.
with all of us.
Explain it for a minute.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah,
So,
I do. Okay, you want me to do it or are you going to do it?
You go for it.
Yeah, so I think when things go wrong, that's where you focus. But what you need to focus on is how people handled it.
Mm.
And this was the Miss America pageant where somehow the wrong name got announced, and Steve Harvey took a hit for this, and he actually handled it beautifully to basically say, sorry, we got that wrong. This person is actually the real Miss America. And, but there was a period of time where there was confusion and there was thoughts that we're going to let this happen and we'll just announce it the next day or whatever. And he's like, no, this person, needs to have their moment in the spotlight and make it right.
Right.
So I think we all need to think about that as well. Like, no email is a problem, but how did everybody react and what did we do? And honestly, how did your customers react? I bet it wasn't as bad as what you actually, but my immediate answer was, oh my goodness, that would not be a good idea,
Right.
Yeah.
And
so crazy.
We did get calls. We're like, hey, is everything good? But going back to that Miss America challenge, one thing that was really remarkable about that is how he shortened the time to action. Because in our presentation with Cujo, he talked about maybe doing something the next day. And he's like, nope, we have an error. There's an issue that needs to be corrected. It's going to get done right now.
Yeah.
And so as business owners, when you start to drag it out and add time to that critical decision, what's going to happen? It's just going to fester and it's just going to boil. So taking action quickly is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes that comes from like following your gut. Really,
Mm-hmm.
like the people that were with Steve Harvey in the room, they were like, yeah, whatever. Steve Harvey's gut told him, no, this needs to be fixed right now.
Right,
and he was like, nothing's getting in my way. This is getting fixed right now. And I might not do it perfectly, right? Because he didn't quite, there were people in the room who were like, he doesn't get, a 10 out of 10. He got an 8 out of 10 because he didn't tell the other woman, like, come down. There was definitely like confusion still.
Sure.
But he definitely has a higher score than the organizers who let the wrong answer be shared and then didn't want to fix it until the next day, right? Like Steve Harvey still took that gut reaction of, no, this needs to get fixed right now, and took that out on the stage and did something about it, which I think is the most impactful thing he could have done in that moment.
And it's that clarity in what the solution actually is. And I think we can always get in these situations where you have inner civil war and you start to debate with yourself, well, if I do this, maybe this will happen, then this might happen. Mm-hmm. So it's really being able to detach from that issue and try to see it for what it actually is, and then develop clarity around that. And that's tough. It's really hard when you're in the heat of those moments, you get that amygdala hijack and, you're dealing with all those emotions and you got to sort through it.
Yeah. So one of the things that came up in my mind throughout this was you're an agency that's on EOS. And I was sitting next to Chris Paradiso, who is also on EOS. And at some points during the breaks, I would just look over at him and I'm like, do you guys operate like this? I mean, you guys are on EOS. So you have very, very clear goals, objectives. How is this going to impact or change your agency overall? How does that fit in with your structure of EOS that you guys are operating on?
So I think, so we're not a purist per se. We do use a software that kind of keeps us in line. But when you get someone like me in the room and you don't have, and you're self-implementing, I can really derail the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we do follow the L10s. We do follow the quarterly rhythms. We do work inside the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer. So that really helps keeping us moving in the right direction. Now, essentially, the Vision Traction Organizer is like a business plan. It's like a 1 to 2 page plan where you set a 10-year vision. You build your mission statement inside there, your core values, your uniques. What makes you unique in your space? Why would people want to do business with you? What's your proven process? So you start to really get all that stuff in there, and then you could break it down to the 3-year vision and then the 1-year target. So you have, these are our 3 to 5 big things we would like to accomplish this year. What do we need to do in Q1 to move us closer to that? What do we need to do in Q2 to move us closer to that? And then that's kind of how you work through that to actually start to make that vision come to life. Does that make sense? And
that totally makes sense.
And the nice thing with it is you flush out issues. So what are some issues that you're experiencing in your business? And you identify those and you just slap them on this big giant issues list. And you just build it. And then every single week, you have an opportunity to tackle one of those. So you do your level 10 meeting and you identify an issue, discuss the issue, solve the issue. So going back to the phone situation, identify the issue. What happened here where our phones went down? What do we need to do to basically solve this problem so it doesn't happen going forward, right?
Yeah.
So and it's kind of like building in that debrief. You can do the debrief in IDS, identify, discuss, solve, to really help move you towards a resolution and clean those things up, hopefully permanently. So are you guys on EOS? Do you operate in that framework?
So we are not today, but I actually was part of an organization that was on EOS, and it's an incredible, I think once you're on EOS somewhere, you kind of approach your business the same way, whether or not you're actually doing all the steps. So I think I'm wired like that. To make sure that everything's measurable, that, there's an owner, there's but not in the purest form. No, I'm not. Right. Yeah. So,
I think it would make sense eventually for us to go onto EOS. But at this point right now, there's too many moving parts in order to build that 10-year vision. Yeah. We kind of have to define ourselves a little bit first.
Yeah, let yourself dream a little bit though, and see what comes up. So,
So, David, I gotta say, as a leader, maybe you feel the same way as I do, but I haven't had many speakers or things impact me in the same way as the session with Robert Teschner. His name is Cujo. That's what we keep saying. Like, there's a lot of people talking about leadership. There's a lot of people talking about how to grow as a leader and how to build your culture, et cetera. Not many do I go back to and quote or think that as they've actually changed my behavior and the things that I'm doing. Did you have the same experience there, or are there other influences that have caused you to really adopt what in your own leadership? Like, give me an idea of what that looks like for you.
Absolutely. So leadership is like this, an ongoing intangible that you always have to work on. So it's not like, boom, I read this John Maxwell book and now I'm ready to roll. No, you got to embody that stuff, and you got to consciously embody these ideas on a regular basis. And that's not always easy. There's some days where you just got the weight of the world just piles up on you and you're flying and you're moving fast, and your team sees that, but that's maybe not what they need at that moment. There's a time and a place for that. But like one thing from John Maxwell always talks about is moving slow through the room. I used to fly into the office if I was coming in from a meeting or something, but now I walk through the area where the cubes are and I chat with people. I move a little bit slower, and you try to help them out if they do have some sort of issue that they're working on, and just really build those relationships. Does that make sense? And then from Cujo, just really trying to acknowledge the good. I think leaders oftentimes will pick on something that's bad, but is that leadership? Reinforce the positives, So, hey, you really did a great job with this. That's fantastic. Do you want to teach that in our Monday meeting? That was a fantastic solution for this. Let's bring that and show the team how you did that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that
Super.
takeaway.
I love when things actually resonate and we to make it our own. And then, I kind of view it as you might be the conglomerate of a whole bunch of different books and things that you've done, but it's not everything from one thing. It's all together. And honestly, that's kind of how EOS has been to me. Like there's parts of it that are core to, I think, what every business should do. But whether or not you can do everything is a whole nother talk show. Right. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of cool though. I loved being in that room with a whole bunch of other leaders that were interested in working on themselves and not just doing things, doing specific things that maybe are insurance based. Like there was a wide variety of people in that room at all different levels and all different ways. It was a fantastic experience in my opinion. Yeah.
Let's stay on that for a minute. So I think when you get the opportunity to go to either a mastermind or a conference, you learn so much from the people who are attending. Speakers are always fantastic, but when you can have that one-on-one conversation with a Mike Stromso or a Chris Paradiso, you're going to pick up all this stuff that is going to be tremendous for you and help you move forward. And that goes for any conference that you're in. So I agree. Take those breaks, those opportunities to really just start to talk with people. Don't sit there on your email or your phone. And don't get me wrong, I've been an offender of that too. But use that as a chance just to learn from some other folks that are there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I felt bad for the people that were out walking and talking on the phone. I'm like, no, you're missing it. Come back. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, so funny. Yeah.
I really like the rise in the conference structure of adding more time to network and like creating the intentionality of this isn't just time for you to like bring your husband and you guys go do something else. You're actually, there's an activity in which you're in a room with all the other people and maybe your husband's there. That's great, but your husband or wife or whatever. But I think it's important that people like to do business with people, right? You got to make those relationships and grow those. I think that's the real value driver of going to events.
Absolutely. And I feel like coming out of the pandemic, people just wanted to switch to virtual this, virtual that, virtual continuing education classes. And you know what? It's convenient, but does it really give you what you're looking for? If you're going to really improve, are you going to get that from that virtual? Maybe. But when you get the chance to talk through a situation with your neighbor at the class, that's huge. So
agreed.
Or the instructor.
Absolutely.
Well, David, I'm so glad that we had a chance to sit next to you and learn together. I love the idea of checking in with all those people to see how things are going with them. I can tell you there's several of the people that are in the room that we are on like a regular kind of cadence of checking in, which is really nice, like awesome. It's created some accountability partners inside that room to say, hey, listen, we shared this thing and maybe we need to hold each other accountable because it can be lonely as a leader also. Like it's everybody looks to you for answers and you're the one saying, hey man, I don't have all the answers, but I'm doing my best. Right. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah. But I was really glad we got to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Good to have you on. I hope you stay warm up there in Ohio while it's still in the bipolar seasons. And if you could make it warmer for me next weekend. So it's,
I'll do my best.
Turn the heat up a little bit in your house. Just, add to the heat index.
That's funny. It's really funny.
Well, good to see you, David. Thanks so much for coming on.
Appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.